Your journey is your journey, and expectations are overrated. Other people's opinions are overrated. You don't have to get caught up in run times or looking a certain way or dressing a certain way. I think wellness, sweating, fitness should be accessible to everybody, no matter your shape or color or ability level. So I think that if you're getting it, you're getting it.
You are listening to the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast with your host, Eric Logan. No Gimmicks, Just Sweat is dedicated to hearing the journeys and unique stories behind an athlete's training and what drives them. Get inspired to own your life and make the impossible possible. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Also, please take a few seconds to rate the show and drop me a review. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of No Gimmicks, Just Sweat. And today we welcome, and I'm going to give her flowers, Dr. Ebony Blackwell to the show. Ebony, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on the show.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. Coming on here to share your story. It's going to be a very, exciting conversation as I have with all guests.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
All right. So are you ready to get started?
Yeah, but let's roll. Give me what you got.
That's what I want to hear. You ready? Okay. So I start off every show with, just kind of an icebreaker question. Just kind of, just allow me to get to know you a little bit more as well as the listeners. So,
Awesome.
All right. So let's start with morning training or evening training.
Ooh, it really depends on my mood. Morning. These days, I'm for sure a morning training.
Okay.
And depending on the season, if it's summer, I try to get out there before the heat.
Okay. All right. So coffee or tea in the morning?
Been drinking a lot of coffee lately. In general, I am a tea person. I like my coffee in the morning and my tea before bed.
Okay. All right. Solo runs or group runs?
Hmm. Group runs. Group runs are definitely better than solo runs.
Okay. What do you prefer to run on a treadmill or run outside?
Outside any day.
All right. Cardio training or strength training?
Strength.
Oh, okay. Good. All right. So what's your favorite race distance to run?
Let's see. Half marathon.
Okay. Good answer. I like, you give half marathon.
Yeah.
All right. What's the first thing you do after a race?
Take off my tennis shoes, my sneakers, put on some comfortable walking shoes, but eat. I've usually, especially if it's a marathon, half marathon, I gotta go eat.
Okay. What's your go-to meal afterwards?
I love pizza after
Oh, okay.
running.
Okay.
hmm
Okay. Is there a dream race you want to run?
Hmm. I have a favorite race.
Okay.
My favorite race was the Flying Pig Marathon. Dream race though, I want to do one of the world majors overseas.
Oh, okay.
So like maybe London or Tokyo, one of those going overseas to run. I would love to do that. So that would be one of my dream races.
Okay. If you can go on a run or have a training session with any celebrity or athlete, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, any athlete?
Or celebrity.
Huh,
It can
or
be a celebrity.
celebrity?
Yeah. Dead or alive.
Rihanna, I think.
Oh, okay. That's a different answer. Okay.
I
Okay.
would like to just hang out with Rihanna.
Now, do you want to go for a run with Rihanna, or you
I
just
want to go
want
to
to
the
kind of
gym. I don't imagine Rihanna wants to even work out for real like that. I don't get that vibe from her. And I'd probably pick out like a strength training, like a gym session, so I
Okay.
could really talk to someone and get to know them. Because usually when you're running, even though you should run at a conversational pace, I probably would be huffing and puffing these days.
All right, last one. Dream location anywhere in the world you would want to go for a run.
Hmm.
Not necessarily a race, just someplace you just want to go for the experience.
Just go for the experience. Um, I've always wanted to run in Big Sur, which is not that hard considering I live right here in California, but I've never done it. But the views that I've seen for the Big Sur Marathon are also pretty beautiful, and I would love to run along the coastline there.
Okay. But you probably could just go do that any day.
I could, but like that's one of the places like that's what if I'm like where do I want to run? I want to run somewhere with views, somewhere along a coastline,
Okay.
and that's probably where somewhere that I've always just wanted to just run along that area of the Pacific coastline, and haven't done it yet. Somewhere like I ran the Honolulu Marathon and just the views that you get to see along those coasts and stuff like that. That's beautiful. So I like being near the water. So anywhere that has a beautiful coastline.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Ebony, let's find out more about you. So
Okay.
this is the segment of the show where we kind of ask people to think of themselves as a superhero. You know, think of it as you're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Your story's about to be told on the big screen. How did you get your superpowers? How did you start out? In the beginning to get to where you are today.
Got bit by a spider, of course.
A radioactive spider. Okay.
Yeah. Um, so my story of how I got to where so I'm a runner, but I'm also a yogi, love yoga, and I really like to look at wellness as holistic wellness. I'm a just comprehensive person, so I really like all aspects of strength training, running, cycling, yoga, and it just depends on where my mood is at. But I wasn't always that way. I did run track in high school. I was a sprinter.
Oh,
And
okay.
back then, you couldn't have paid me to run long distances. I can, I can remember having to jump into a 4x8 in high school, 4x800, because somebody couldn't run that day. And those 2 laps around the track at a sprinting pace about took me out. Whenever coach was like, we're doing distance runs for conditioning today, I was just like, why do you want to do this to me? It wasn't until I actually joined the military in 2009, and I was, you do a whole lot of running for the army, that I got some long distance conditioning through my basic training and then just through physical fitness exams while I was in the military. And for that, for like basic training and fitness tests, you have to run 2 miles as part of the fitness test and would be absolutely miserable during those. When I went through my officer candidate school for the Army to become an officer, I had to pass a 3 mile test. And it just kept getting worse. I was like, dear God, why do I sign up for these things?
Right.
So I've always had opportunities to be involved in fitness and running, strength training, through high school and military. I've always enjoyed working out. I've always enjoyed being challenged. So I was having a conversation, I think, in 2015-ish with a friend who was training for a 10K. And I was like, girl, why would you want to do that to yourself? Like, that's that's 6 whole miles plus point two. And she was like, "Girl, you can't even, the pain subsides usually after the third mile. You get into the fourth and the fifth, and it's pretty much easy after that." And I was like, "Oh, let me run a 5K. I'm gonna try out a 5K and see how that goes." And I did. And I trained for a 5K that summer, and I was like, that was not terrible. I actually ran my first 5K with my daughter back in 2015, fall of 2015, in New Orleans. And she was 8, I want to say 8 at the time.
Okay.
Um, and that was just an amazing experience. I thoroughly enjoyed being with her and now bonding and like mommy daughter activity that we did together. And it took off from there. I got obsessed with running in particular there for a minute, where I was just training nonstop for 5Ks. And then after I ran my first 5K, I trained for a 10K for that following spring. And I was like, next year I'm gonna run a half marathon. And then I ended up doing that. And from there, I was like, next year I'm gonna run a full marathon. And then the next year I was like, I'm gonna run 3 marathons this year. I drank the Kool-Aid, see. I
No,
drank the Kool-Aid.
you got bit by the bug. You got
I
bit
got,
by the bug.
I got bit by the bug, like I said. And it had spiraled out of control there for a minute.
Right.
With running at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really just, I was passing the time with like running, and I got involved with a sports-based youth development nonprofit in New Orleans that was also centered around exposing the youth in the city to running. And so it really became an identity there for a little while, where I was doing a lot of running in my personal life just for fun, as a hobby, to pass time,
Right.
to release some stress from work and stuff like that. Then I got involved with the kids, and I'm very service oriented, community oriented. So that was an amazing way to connect one of my passions to working with young people. And then I started building a community around me in the city of New Orleans with like a local run club out there and other like minded people. And it really became a way of life for me to be involved in fitness and wellness. And it's right around the time as well that I was like, I really would be interested in pursuing my certification for yoga, to become a certified yoga instructor. I was using yoga at the time as a means of cross training,
Okay.
and in between my run days, get a good stretch in, but also building up a lot of good strength and stamina through different yoga workouts, and started dabbling with the idea of becoming a certified yoga instructor. And yeah, so I don't know if there's something in particular you want to know about in there, but just from a young age, running has always been in my life in one way, one form or another. And it just has really become a means for me to release stress, be mindful, to check in with myself, to connect with people in my community. Yeah, just working out. One of my best friends was, one of my running buddies. We don't live in the same state anymore. Heck, she doesn't even live in the country anymore. So, but, we spent a lot of time and developed our relationship over running. And she also became my personal trainer, because that's the work that she does. So we were able to run together, strength train together. And it just, it's a nice way to tap out of my everyday responsibilities with my regular 9 to 5, to be able to tap into my fitness and my wellness is definitely a core part of my identity.
Okay. Okay. Uh, So I want to kind of talk more about yoga, but before we get into that, I want to kind of see, what does a day or what does a week of just training and workout look for you?
Yeah, it varies. It definitely fluctuates for me depending on what I have going on. There's been times when I'm usually hip deep marathon training. And even
Okay.
though it's not my favorite distance, it's a distance that means a lot to me. And I feel like I learn the most about myself when I'm marathon training. It's time consuming though. And as a single mom with a 9 to 5 um, career, It's very time consuming. So when I'm marathon training, my week, usually my days start early, trying to get up and get those miles in before work because I know once I go to work, I'm not going to want to work out in the evening. I'm gonna be tired.
Right.
So I try
Yep.
try and get that done before I go to work, before I have to tap into things with my daughter. And then I am usually, if there's like a strength training or something like that on the calendar, I'm trying to likely sneak that in like during my lunch break or in the evening times to hit up a yoga class or something like that, hit up the pool for some cross training or cycling. And then my weekends marathon training are usually dedicated to the long run. That I'm sure everybody can who's done a marathon or a big race like that is dedicated usually to the long run. There were times when I was marathon training that it's like pulling a part-time job.
Right.
The amount of
Oh,
time you have to commit to that.
yes. When you're training prepare for a race, it's almost like a job. So you can kind of
Hmm.
imagine that the professional athletes that do this,
Yeah, they do
you
it
know,
all day.
yeah, that is their job.
That's their job. There have been times when I'm training for something and that I'll get jealous and just feel like I wish this could just be my job because now I'm exhausted putting the time and energy into prepping for this race. And I haven't run a marathon in a couple of years. So my last one was in Honolulu in 2021. I've actually had to taper back because things just got so busy with work. I was like, it was exhausting to the amount of time I was putting into something like that. Um, but outside of marathon training, it's not as hard for me to find the time for shorter distance races. In fact, during my last marathon training, I was like, that's when I decided the half marathon was my favorite race. It was like I can remember doing a long run, and it was probably the day I was doing my 20-mile long run, and I just stopped running, and I was waiting on a light to turn, and I turned my music off, and I was alone, and I said to myself, "If you were training for a half marathon, we'd be done by now, Ebony." And the light turned where I could cross the street. I turned my music on and I just kept going. So it's like, it's not as time consuming for me to hit those shorter distances and shorter races. But definitely when I'm in that type of mode for training for anything, it is definitely like pulling another part-time job.
Yes, yes, and I think.
And
Oh, I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say. I was gonna say that. I think a lot of us at some point, running and being in races and stuff. We always, man, I wish I could get paid for this. I could,
Hmm.
make money. But then when you start thinking about like, huh, how much training do I have to put in
Right.
really to really make money from this?
For sure.
Yeah. So
Right. And I'm not running fast enough to make money from anything. So it's like, let's get this done so we can take our butt to work today, Ebony. Don't quit your day job type of thing.
exactly. Yeah, this is fun, but yeah, I still have a day job to go to.
Right.
All right. We'll still want to kind of talking about training a little bit, but I want to kind of talk about yoga. How did you get into yoga?
I actually started doing yoga 16 years ago now, right around the time that my daughter was born in 2007. I
Okay.
was trying to find something that I could do as a new mom that wasn't too stressful on my body at the time while I was recovering from being pregnant and childbirth. And I had a local like YMCA near the house. So I signed up for that. They gave military discounts. So I joined the YMCA and started going to their yoga classes. And it was great. I was like, I really love this. So then I started doing yoga classes at home on the TV, and had a on and off relationship with it until about 2015 when I was in New Orleans and one of the local studios was running like $30, 30 days unlimited yoga type of deal. And I signed up for that to see how I liked the studio and did practically 30 days straight of yoga and that's one of the times that I was able to develop more of a consistent practice with it and really loved it. Loved how it complemented my running at the time, helped my body, my flexibility, mobility, but truly the mindfulness aspect of it. I also started meditating around the same time, was going through a lot of stress with military work, had just started a PhD program, mom, all of
Hmm.
the things in life were coming my way, and the
Right.
so yoga and running together were this amazing outlet for me to stay in tune with myself, to stay grounded and level-headed, and have just had a real consistent practice with it since then. It was around 2019 that I finally took the dive and was like, let me sign up for my yoga certification. And then I had to not do it at that time because I got the phenomenal career opportunity to move to California. And so I left New Orleans, came out here to California, and found a studio to take my teacher training at out here instead. And then the pandemic happened.
Of
So,
course. Of
yeah.
course.
And so I waited a couple of years, pretty much, yeah, because it was about 2021, early 2020, late 2021, early 2022 when I was like, okay, the studios are starting to open back up. Let's get at it. Let's get this yoga teacher training done. But yeah, it's been about 15 years now with a nice, consistent practice and relationship with yoga that has just been wonderful for the mind and body.
Okay. So what all is involved with becoming a yoga instructor, or is it yogi, if I'm pronouncing
A
it correctly?
yogi, a yogi.
Yogi,
Yeah.
so what's all involved in that?
Yeah. So you need to get a 200-hour yoga teacher training certification out of the way for just like a baseline yoga instructor. And that's what I did a couple years ago now. So the 200 hours, it is a lot of class time where you're just learning about the philosophy and history of yoga, the roots of it, where it comes from, and then you're dabbling into learning about the postures, the asanas that are in yoga, the different types of yoga. There's people think yoga and they're like, I'm just going to go sit on a mat and I'm going to stretch. But
Right.
it's a really um, fascinating subject matter that is just broad and has so many levels to it. The philosophy behind it is beautiful that a lot of people that they're just going to a yoga class may not even get to tap into that I was able to do a deep dive in with my training. A lot of the like guiding life philosophies about um, how yogis live and interact with the world, interact with the people around them. Those are some of the things that you get to do a deeper dive with in the 200-hour teacher training. In addition to learning about the anatomy of the human body and how the yoga postures are beneficial to the mind and the body, you learn about breathing and how to use your breath to tether you to the moment, tether you to your body, how to check in with yourself. And you learn about meditation and how to use yoga as an opportunity to meditate. So it's a very, I could go on and on. It's a very fascinating topic that is so much more than a lot of the westernized yoga studios offer to our students for sure. And um, it's one of the I'm a learner. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I have my 3 degrees, two of them in biology, a PhD in education. I've learned through the military, but getting my 200-hour yoga certification was definitely one of my favorite things to learn
Mm.
about and to dive into. And from there, you can go for like a 300-hour yoga certification to start learning about some more in-depth stuff, more advanced postures. And depending on where you want to go from there, you could potentially even start your own teacher training once you've accomplished 500 hours worth of yoga training. So I'm trying to decide where I want to go with it next, but I've currently am a 200-hour certified yoga instructor.
Okay. So it's more than just, reading a book and taking a test.
For sure. In that you also have to do some observations and like go out into the community, attend yoga classes, write up observations that are turned in, they're graded. You also have to, I took quizzes throughout the program that built up to a final exam that you had to score a certain score on. And then also, at least for my training, I had to develop sequences, so classes. I had to develop 8 different hour-long classes that were also graded to say, with a script and everything, like, this is what I would do if I was hosting my class for 8 hours, and then practice that. I also did, like, a teacher immersion program with, one-on-one with a teacher so that I could get some more in-depth guidance on just how to be a good yoga teacher. There's lots of books that you're reading to complement the class as well. So yeah, you're not taking a test, just taking a test and saying, "Hey, trust me, I took a test."
All right. So what are the advantages of practicing yoga in conjunction with running?
Yeah, so I think of a runner who doesn't stretch or warm up before
Okay.
they run.
Right.
That we would look at them like they're crazy. I know there's a lot of us out here who do that, don't like warming up or stretching after it. But like, as soon as that person's injured, you're gonna be like, that's because you don't warm up. You don't stretch when you're done. You're not doing any of the
Right.
things. And just like we tell folks that strength training, if you want to be a faster, stronger running, if you want to make it through that 18-mile wall, standing upright, not hunched over, you need to work on your core, you need to work on your glutes and things
Right.
like that. Yoga can do all of that for you. Um, there are forms of yoga that I've noticed my legs are just stronger from some of the postures, the balancing postures. Yoga has helped me improve my arches. I have flat feet, so as a runner, that can be incredibly painful. Balancing postures and things like that help me build the strength I need in my lower extremities. Mobility, different types of yoga poses can help open and expand the hips, which are one of the tightest parts on our body as runners. So there's definitely opportunities to improve both your flexibility and your mobility, shoulder openers, hip openers, um, back bends, and things like that that just can create space in the body, while also through some of the standing postures and balances helping build some strength and stability in your body that can definitely help you as a runner.
Okay. Nice. So you highly recommend it as a form of cross training.
Yeah, I think it's a
Yeah.
beautiful form of cross training. There are times that I've been preparing for a marathon that it's one of my primary means of cross training, that and a couple of strength sessions in the gym, but also my taper. I lean into yoga very
Okay.
heavily during
Okay.
the taper because by the time you're reaching the taper, your body is beat up.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that week of relaxation and tapering off from your running can be complemented with some passive forms of yoga like yin and restorative yoga that can help you tremendously come race day because they really can help with mobility and recovery.
Okay. So with yoga, and this is me asking questions,
Yeah.
just to kind of see, maybe I need to start back taking more yoga classes than before.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, does it also help with there's a lot with mindfulness and relaxation, but have you found it to help you kind of get over some of that anxiety, of preparing for a big race, or you know
For sure.
yeah, just kind of being more relaxed.
For sure. One of the key components of yoga is breath work.
Okay.
And So yoga in general is supposed to help unify the mind and the body. That's what yoga means. It means to yoke or to unify, and what you're trying to unify is the mind and the body.
Okay.
So there's breath work practices that are encompassed in yoga and meditation that can help reduce stress, reduce anxiety, fatigue, high blood pressure. There's so many health benefits, and there's so many different types of yoga that you can tap into. But I find when you know how to still the mind, bring the mind to stillness, and be present in the moment, it can help regulate your heart rate, your breathing, and then you can utilize those tactics like pre-race. Say you're standing at the starting line and you feel like those pre-race jitters coming over you.
Right.
You can take a
Yes.
second, close your eyes, soften your gaze, check in with the body, visualize your breath entering gently through the nose and traveling down the spine as it starts to enter all the nooks and crannies of the lungs. Feel the rib cage expand. Put your hand over your heart and a hand over your belly. Check in with your body. What are you feeling as you're sitting here checking in with your breathing? Um, I find that I get jitters before teaching yoga classes sometimes, but there's this opportunity to ground myself at the top of class with my students or even before I arrive, where when I just practice a quick breathing exercise, all that anxiety and those jitters can go away. And those are things that I've tapped into pre race. But then also, breath work can help you during the race too, with just knowing how to control your breathing while you're running as well.
Okay. So, Ebony, you are a busy person.
I
You
am.
are you're a mother. You're an assistant dean.
Yes.
You're a yoga instructor. So, how do
Mhm.
you find balance? How do you um, stay calm and stay balanced? Because that's something that athletes. Even though we're not the professional athletes, we're still athletes. That's something we kind of struggle with. You know, balancing trying to perform at our best level with work and with family and everything else.
Yeah, and that's why I haven't run a marathon since 2021, since Honolulu, because all of that stuff can catch up with you. And I do not glorify busyness anymore. There would have been a time when I was like maybe working on my PhD when people were like, I don't know how you get it all done. I would have thought that that was a compliment. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely had that Wonder Woman complex, and it's overrated. uh, it's point blank. It's overrated when you're trying to be that busy or not actively working against being that busy. So I prioritize these days dismantling grind culture, dismantling busyness for the sake of being busy, and lean more into being mindfully productive.
Okay. Okay.
And I had to take some steps back from how much I was training, how much I could get things done, and focus on like myself, my body. What was my body telling me? I remember I was gearing up to train for the New York Marathon in 2022, that I had got through the lottery, and I was so excited for it. And right around that summer, my ankle swelled up so bad I couldn't see the bones in my ankle.
Oh
My neck
wow.
started locking up on me. I started having really bad stomach issues that landed me in the gastro office, with my doctors, and they could not pinpoint anything being really wrong until one day when my doctors was just like, I think it's just the stress that you put on your body to produce. And I have a team of about 20 staff at work, professional staff and student workers, about 6,500 students that depend on the services that my team provides, a 16-year-old daughter that I raise as a single mother, um, for the most part. And um, then trying to fit in things like running, marathons, and doing my yoga teacher certification really got to be really hard on my body. So that's when I had to defer the New York Marathon to let my ankle recover. And it took a while for it to get back to where it needed to be, and the rest of my body to catch up with all of that. So I definitely don't believe in like being busy anymore for the sake of being busy. Mindfully productive are two of my favorite words to link together. How can I work smarter and not harder? But truly to stay balanced in all of that, boundaries, feeling okay with saying no to people and new opportunities if it doesn't fit into what I've got going on in life at that time, and prioritizing just like holistic wellness. So, doing my yoga, meditating, going on walks, going on runs, but not necessarily trying to hold myself to some expectation that I need to be training for a marathon. Or at that time, what I was always chasing a goal time. So, putting the extra pressure on myself to finish my races in, a sub 4 marathon or whatever, sub 2 half marathon, instead of just going out and doing it for fun. So I
Okay.
definitely I try to be more mindful in what I'm doing and how much I'm taking on so that I can stay more balanced and present, because I'm not going to be no good to anybody if I'm not here.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I'm gonna remember something you just said. Mindfully productive.
Yes,
Not
mindfully productive.
not being busy for the sake of being busy.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So this is kind of a fun question. I always ask runners of this. What's your go-to running shoe?
Brooks Adrenaline
Okay,
GTS.
you came out real quick with that. Brooks are gentlemen.
Faithful. They need to go ahead and sign me up somewhere. I've never run a marathon in any other shoe, and I usually would buy 3 to 4 of them. And y'all know them shoes aren't cheap, but once you put so many miles on them, you got to get a new shoe. So I was usually putting a lot of miles on them shoes. So I have a line of Brooks Adrenaline in my house. I've had every color. Every time they drop, I'm like, oh, gotta go get the new ones.
Right.
I'm sick of how much money I've given Brooks over the years.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of runners, depending whether it's Brooks, Hoka, Nike, whatever,
Yeah,
if you are a heavy runner, especially if you are a marathon runner, you go through shoes
you go
like
through
it's
them fast.
nothing.
Yeah, and I have a flat foot, so the adrenaline has always
Oh
been really good
yeah,
for
yeah,
my
yeah,
flat feet and ankles. Yeah,
yeah. Because you can get luckily 250, 300 miles, on a shoe without you
right.
start noticing the cushion is not the same.
Yep.
And
I usually will have a tweak. I look at the bottom of my shoe and I'm like, oh, it's time. Yep.
all right. So this is kind of a two-part question here. What is your proudest moment as an athlete or runner? And on the flip side, what is your worst moment or your biggest mistake as a runner?
Yeah. I'd say any of my marathons that I've finished are some of my personal proudest moments as a runner. You learn so much about yourself as a person, in my opinion, once you've completed a marathon, and about like what you're capable. But my proudest moment probably is when I completed my first half marathon with the sports based youth development organization in New Orleans that I mentioned to you. Shout
Hmm.
out to Youth Run NOLA. One of anybody who has followed me over the years knows that I have supported and will always support Youth Run NOLA with everything that I've got. And I love their mission and what they do. But the opportunity to be paired up with a young person who is learning different life skills, soft skills, and leadership skills while running,
Right.
and valuing their health and well-being at the same time. It's just, as someone who's service oriented and youth oriented, that's probably some of my any race that I finished with those kids are always my proudest. Less about me finishing it and more just being able to be of service to them and help them in any way that I could while they chased their goals, has always and will always be good memories for me. And
Okay. Okay.
especially considering I got to share a lot of those opportunities with my own child.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Least proud moment. Running, it was that that question, the least proud as well,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
biggest fail maybe?
yes. The biggest mistake or the worst moment you've had.
The worst moment I've had running. The biggest mistake is fueling wrong
Okay.
for a marathon. I've done it twice. The very first time I ran a marathon, it took me about 5 hours, 12 minutes to finish it. I didn't know what fueling was. I just was out there running, and a friend of mine asked me, "So, what's your fueling plan for like the race?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Um, he was like, "Gels, chews, sports drinks. What is your plan, Ebony?" And I was like, "I don't have one." Like, I didn't know I needed it, which is probably why my training sucked so bad. I didn't know about electrolytes back then, or honey stingers, or goo, or Morton's gels. Like, it was all foreign to me. So while it's my biggest fail, my first marathon, running it without a fueling plan, I would have thought would have learned. I ran my first marathon in 2016, 2017, I think, 2017. And then in 2018, I knew better. I knew better. I had
Right.
a solid fueling plan. I was ready to go for the Chicago Marathon in 2018. And I got nervous on the course and thought, I had a drink on me, my own drink with me, and I knew that was supposed to be my drink, and that I have a sensitive stomach, and it had the potential to be my best race ever. And I got nervous and took the course's Gatorade. I don't
Mm,
know if you've ever drank Gatorade on a race day when your stomach's not used to Gatorade,
right.
but it ended badly for me out there, and still set a PR that day, but I finished like 35 minutes shy of what my goal was and what I know I was capable of running on that day. All because I got nervous and was like, "Well, I don't want to run out of my drink, so I'll drink a little bit of this Gatorade too." And
Right.
it damaged my stomach that day bad. Bad.
And you and she's like bad. It's like it's bringing back these horrific
No,
memories.
it was bad. I was crying on the course, and
Oh,
it was like, what if my stomach just hurt so bad. I remember
no.
collapsing at the finish line, and being even after it took like a full 24 hours. When I told you I like to eat pizza after a race,
Right.
I couldn't eat anything. My stomach was demolished for about 24 hours after that race, and yeah, my ego was as well.
Yeah. But you learned your lesson.
I learned. I sure did.
We're hard headed in some extent. In some level, we're hard headed.
For sure.
And I say hard headed as in athletes are hard headed in the sense of,
Yeah,
yeah, I can do this.
I can do this. It's just a little bit of Gatorade when my stomach's not used to Gatorade.
All right. So, what would you go back from where you are now? If you can go back a couple of years, based on what you know now about running, about yoga, about just fitness in general, what would you go back and tell yourself?
I probably would tell myself to maybe do it scared, be comfortable with being uncomfortable, F everybody's opinion, like,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and don't get caught up in like the comparison trap or
Oh
other people's
yes.
preconceived
Yes.
expectations of you.
Yes.
I think I've spent a lot of time thinking, well, I need to keep doing this because people are used to seeing me running.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've been chasing this goal and I haven't hit it yet, so I need to keep on trying. Or this is what somebody else is doing, so I should try this, or this outfit, or this shoe. And I think the biggest thing, it for yoga type stuff, I would tell myself, do it scared, and take that leap a little bit earlier to get involved in that. As far as like being a teacher of yoga, it took me a while to build up the courage to become a certified yoga teacher. But then with like running and things like that, and just life in general, that it's okay, it's get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's where growth happens. F their expectations, F their opinions. You ain't gonna be for everybody, and just do what makes you feel good and that you find joy out of versus trying to like get caught up in that comparison trap and doing what you think people expect of you or what everybody else is doing.
Okay. Good advice. Good advice. Even just in general to everyone, especially
Yeah,
the part of not trying to live up to what other people are seeing and kind of expecting from you, because
for sure.
we kind of get trapped into that. Like you were saying, people are used to seeing me run. People are used to seeing me race. I have to keep doing it.
Yeah, when I had to take time off and make the decision to defer the New York Marathon, it was like I was being hard-headed because I'm like, people know I've gotten into it. They're going to expect me to run it. So, I had a goal at the time to run 50 marathons in 50 states. I had publicized that goal on my blog and stuff. And I was like, now I have to keep at this stuff, even though my body was like, that's not what we need or want to do right now, Ebony. I kept trying to force that on my body and it was stressing me out. And once I had that conversation of, are you really doing this because you want to do it or because people are looking forward to seeing how your
Right.
training is going and looking forward to seeing if you finally hit that time goal and oh, she's going to check off another state
Yes.
or
Yeah.
or are you doing this for yourself? And when I had that conversation, I was like, I don't even like running that damn much right now. I'm in pain. I'll do it next year. And when next year came and I had the opportunity to pick it up, I was like, actually, no, I'm in a real peaceful place right now. And I don't want to ramp that up just yet. And
Right.
I'll know when it's time. When it's time to go out for another marathon, I'll know when. And I'm not going to do it because other people may be looking for me to do it.
Exactly. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. All right. So what's next for you? Are you training for anything? You got anything else going on? So what does 2024 look like for Ebony?
I imagine 2024 will be a beautiful year for Ebony. I'm not training for any races right now. I'm just training for life. I just got promoted at work to assistant dean. That's 2 weeks old right now. So I'm basking in that joy right now. My daughter's a junior in high school, but I'm really living in the yoga world right now.
Okay.
Right now I have a 6-week workshop going on um, with the local YMCA out here. I decided to, take my talents to where my passion for yoga started and doing different things, just community based things out here on the ground. So I'm doing different yoga workshops, offering different yoga classes in the community right now. Um, I read a book last year called Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hearsay, and it's a beautiful book about how we've got to dismantle grind culture, stop being
Hmm.
busy for the sake of being busy, that type of stuff. So I'm really
Right.
leaning into the yoga space as an opportunity to you promote rest, wellness, and mindfulness. And so doing a lot of different type of yoga workshops throughout 2024 for me is going to be a big thing. I get married in 2 weeks.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm really excited about that and to just see where things kick off. I have a goal to hopefully be able to step deeper into the wellness industry in a few years, where maybe potentially bridge the gap between my work in higher education, leadership, and wellness, and maybe step out into that type of space. So I'm really leaning into the that aspect of wellness right now, that aspect of fitness and working out. And I was actually thinking recently that if I do train for anything big this year other than this race called life, I would like to later in the year do a one of our local half marathons out here. But no pressure on myself for that right now.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure.
Okay. All right. Before I let you go, do you have any last words that you want to share with the listeners?
I am very inspired by folks and just your everyday folks. And I think that people who get out there and take care of themselves, take care of their bodies are amazing. I love seeing folks doing strength workouts and yoga workouts, cycling and running. And so whatever your means of sweat and energy are, I think that that is amazing. And I hope that if anything I said resonated with folks today is that your journey is your journey, and expectations are overrated. Other people's opinions are overrated. You don't have to get caught up in run times or looking a certain way or dressing a certain way. I think wellness, sweating, fitness should be accessible to everybody, no matter your shape or color or ability level. So I think that if you're getting it, you're getting it. And I like that. Keep at it.
Yeah, I love it. Get out and get it.
Get out and get it.
Love it. Yeah. Well, Ebony, thank you for coming on the show and talk with me today. I really appreciate it because this was a great conversation.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful evening.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast. We really appreciate everyone who tunes in each week. If you enjoyed today's show, please support us by subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember to tell your friends about the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast, so we can continue to have awesome conversations with everyday athletes just like you. Until next time, have an amazing week.